morning. We're live here at Primetime News. My name is Apollo Tobar, and it is a beautiful day outside. No clouds, the sun is shining. We aren't here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about two recent articles examining the effects of violence and personality on eyewitness memory. In many cases, eyewitness testimony can be crucially important to criminal justice cases, and more often than not, can provide critical information about the identities of suspects or even details of a crime. However, while eyewitnesses can be compelling for legal testimony, eyewitnesses can make errors in what they remember due to the violent natures of the crime or who they are as people. Now, to begin with, I'll be introducing an article by two authors by the name of Laura Pajan and Dave Walsh, both from the Department of Social Sciences of the University of Derby, UK. Within the article, Pajan and Walsh examine how violence and personalities would affect eyewitness memory through an experiment done by one Clifford and Holland. The main aim of this article and experiment was to show a relation between physical violence and personality domains, along with memory performance, and how accurate memory can be for an eyewitness based on three research factors. Within the experiment done by Clifford and Holland, they hypothesized that the relationship between eyewitness personalities and memory accuracy would be influenced by the presence of violence. They tested this hypothesis through an experiment which involved 53 students from an undergraduate criminology class, all of which agreed to participate and weren't given any incentives. These 53 students were asked to complete a hexaco PIR. Now, a hexaco PIR is an instrument used to assess the 6 major dimensions of personality: honesty and humility, emotionality, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness to experience. With this done, participants were randomly divided into two groups, Group A and Group B. Each group was told to watch a video but weren't told what the contents of the video would be. Group A was asked to stay in the classroom while Group B was asked to leave. Group A watched a group video which included a non-violent interaction between two groups. Once finished, Group A was asked to leave and remain silent about the video, and Group B was asked to come in. Group B watched a violent videotape including a physical aggression between two groups. Once Group B was finished, Group B was asked to stay silent and Group A was returned back into the classroom. Both groups were given SIAs to complete and to turn in. SAI, or Self-Administrative Interview, is an evidence-based investigative tool completed by eyewitnesses and enables them to provide in their own words what they had witnessed. Now, you're probably wondering what the results of the experiment was. Well, for violence and memory performance, results found that physical violence did not decrease the quantity nor the quality of the information recalled. In fact, participants that experienced violent conditions recalled more information, as shown by Table 1. For personality and memory performance, results were able to identify another relationship between personality and eyewitness memory in the sense that participants who had a higher score of honesty had an increase of information recollection for the setting of the crime, as shown by Table 2. Finally, for all three research topics of personality, violence, and memory performance, the experiment found that physical violence influenced this relationship greatly. According to this table, Table 3, in non-violent conditions, the relationship between honesty and setting was maintained. However, under the violent condition, the relationship between openness, conscientiousness, and emotionality domains, memory accuracy, actually appeared. It seems that violence doesn't have an actual effect on memory accuracy. Instead, it has an effect on how much information is given. In the end, the experiment shined a lot of light on how violence and personality can truly affect eyewitness memory. This just goes to show just how much you can learn about memory in criminal justice cases and just how much of it is affected by different factors. We've got another article coming up by one Catherine Hong. But before I move on to that, we've got an interview with a professional. Take it away, Hector. Show us what you got.
This is Hector Pena interviewing.
My name is Jose Estrada, and I'm a current law enforcement officer of 20 years.
Wow. So, do you think that eyewitness testimonies are reliable?
Eyewitness testimonies are reliable. They're actually an important part to conducting an investigation, any type of investigation. But their testimony is a piece of the puzzle. And while a witness, somebody who might have seen something, might have not seen the total picture or everything that might have occurred from beginning to end, whatever they have to offer is just a piece of that puzzle. And during the course of an investigation, there may be missing things where a victim or a suspect may add to it, but that witness testimony just completes the picture. And from there, that's where an investigation can take the right direction in order for a solution.
Have you ever had a specific encounter where there was maybe an eyewitness testimony that wasn't as reliable?
It depends on the situation. There have been a couple things, and maybe not a criminal situation. The first one I can think of off the top of my head was actually a missing person. And it was a elderly couple that lived together, and the husband was taking a shower, and his wife, who was suffering from dementia, actually walked off from the house. She had been gone for about an hour. When he called into 911 finally, when he realized that she was missing and he couldn't find her, his description of her, he gave a description of a certain color of clothing and her hair color. Well, luckily she was wearing what we have a tracker bracelet for people who suffer from autism or dementia. And we were in the vicinity of where this tracker was pinging. Well, when we found the lady, she was neither wearing the same colored clothes that the husband described, her dress was a totally different color, and we couldn't see her hair because she was wearing a hair covering.
Wow.
So when we found her, she was actually sitting in a person's car about a block away from her home, sitting in a person's car that was in the yard, in the front yard, and nobody had really realized it was her because she didn't look like what she was described to be. But luckily in that situation, it came to a good resolution. We were able to find her and reunite her with her family. But the description given, other than elderly female, the description given didn't help at all.
Yeah, wow.
So
would you say that people have to be very careful with how they describe their testimonies or their eyewitness?
Yes, it's very important. I'll give you another example. And this one was actually a criminal investigation that we assisted a local police department with. And the call came in from a bank. And this bank was already on notice that there was people in the area committing fraud by cashing fraudulent checks. So in this particular instance, we received information on the radio from dispatch saying that the police department was responding to a bank, a local bank, in reference to a guy who was trying to cash a check. And the description given by the bank teller to dispatch was a white male wearing a button-down white shirt. That was the only description that we had received. Now, my partner and I, we were the closest one in the area, so we responded there first. And when we arrived, there was a white male wearing a white shirt out in the parking lot. And upon seeing law enforcement, me and my partner show up, he began to walk out of the business and through the parking lot. Well, I positioned myself to where I would intercept him in the parking lot. Now, again, we got the right person, the white male with a white shirt. There could be any number of people. It could have been you that day wearing a white shirt. Could have been me wearing a white shirt. But what really stood out to me, I thought to myself, well, this would have been nice to know going to this scene, not knowing what I was going to encounter. But this guy not only was a white male wearing a white shirt, but he was covered in tattoos. Not very many people. I mean, people will have tattoos, but he was covered in tattoos. And he also had a mohawk. Now, very few people I encounter on the street on a daily basis have a mohawk. Now, I don't know if maybe the dispatcher might have not asked certain questions, or the teller at the bank had a little bit of tunnel vision because she realized who she was dealing with. But if even with the description of a mohawk would have been given for dispatch, that would have narrowed down the suspect pool.
Wow.
And luckily, he was the only one in the parking lot that particular day at that particular time, and we got the right guy. But this simple details like that, like a haircut, could pinpoint the right person and eliminate any other people from being viewed as a suspect.
That is so good. Well, you heard it here. Please make sure that when you call for a mohawk first, not that you didn't see a white shirt. Thank you guys.
Interviewing.
Mike O'Hara. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist for 22 years.
Wow, thank you. So, do you think eyewitness testimonies are reliable?
I think it depends. It really depends on many factors, which I hope we can talk a little bit about. But I do know that eyewitness testimony is controversial. Studies have been done, one by Ohio State University recently, and it's replicated studies before that, has found that as high as 52% of wrongful convictions were the result of bad eyewitness testimony. And what we also know in other studies is that jurors actually rely on eyewitness testimony as high as 75%. That's how much faith they put into it, not realizing that it is controversial and that it is almost a coin flip at the time wrong, or it could be, certainly in the wrongful convictions. So,
what would you say could be some factors to this controversial topic?
Well, what needs to be understood is the area of the brain that has to do with memory organization. That's the limbic system as a whole, and how it organizes memory, and how that it's the same system, by the way, that's affected by stress. And the parts of the limbic system that handle stress, something called the amygdala. When the amygdala is triggered by something that makes the person believe they're in danger, that's right next to another area of the limbic system, a very important part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is where we believe memory is stored. So we do believe when someone is under stress that could be impacting how they perceive, how they store, and then later how they recall the memory. So,
wow. Do you think that mental illness could have an effect on somebody's eyewitness memory?
Oh, I think it really could. I think if someone was in a major depression, that could affect their memory. I think if someone has post-traumatic stress disorder and something similar happens and it triggers them reliving an incident, that could be affecting their eyewitness testimony. So there's many. What if someone is in a manic state and they have bipolar illness? Their judgment is impaired. We know that, and so that would be affecting their memory. So yes, mental illness is another important consideration to take when considering if one's eyewitness testimony is reliable in that kind of a situation.
That is astonishing to hear. That is all the time that we have for today. Thank you, Michael.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
That was great. A great insight. Thank you, Hector. My name is Jared McNair, and moving on to our next article, The Effect of Violence and Perceived Severity on Eyewitness Memory by Catherine Hahn from Tilburg University. In this study, Hahn aimed to answer the question of what effect witnessing a violent event would have on memory accuracy, and if participants would be able to recall physical descriptions of the perpetrators more accurately after witnessing a violent event over a non-violent event. Based on previous research and studies like the previously mentioned Clifford and Holland, the study by Purz predicted 3 different things. One being that the memory accuracy of participants who viewed the violent video would be significantly lower than the memory accuracy of participants who watched a non-violent video. Another hypothesis was that the violent video viewers would be able to recall physical descriptions better than the non-violent video viewers, and the violent viewers would have a less accurate view on the details of the crime. And finally, it was hypothesized that how severely the participants saw the crime would let them have a positive effect on their memory accuracy in the non-violent video. In order to answer these questions, test these hypotheses, Hahn conducted a study much similar to the article before mentioned by Apollo. In this study, there were 93 participants in which students from Tilburg University. These 93 students were the first years who registered to partake in different research studies in exchange for subject hours. Each student was required to be a current student at Tilburg University and be proficient in English. For the study, the 93 participants were randomly assigned into either a violent test group or a non-violent control group. The first group, aka the violent group, were required to watch a video of two men engaging in a physical and violent altercation amidst several bystanders who watched. The second group, aka the non-violent group, were required to watch a video of a young man pickpocketing an elderly woman in a grocery store. Once each group finished viewing the videos, each participant was given a questionnaire that separated into two sections. The questionnaire involved open-ended questions describing the event and rating the severity of the crime from a scale of 1 to 5. Now, reviewing the results of the study for the first hypothesis through this chart. The chart shows that the participants in the non-violent video actually performed slightly worse than those who watched the violent video. This means that the participants who had watched the violent video had remembered more details of the crime within the video than participants who would watch the non-violent one. Reviewing the next results for the second hypothesis, Figure 2 shows that in the case of remembering the perpetrator's physical description, the violent video viewers remembered more than the non-violent video viewers. This figure also shows that participants in the non-violent video and the violent video performed equally when remembering details of the incident. Finally, onto the final hypothesis results. There was no statistical significant effect on the level of perceived crime severity on memory accuracy. This essentially meant that the average memory scores of participants in both groups were not affected by how severely they saw the crime to be. This article by Hahn really did tie in with the other article's point of violence in eyewitness memory. The points made in this article actually touched on a few of the points presented within the other article, such as how the violent crimes seem to recall more information than that of its non-violent counterpart. Moving on, we have a few more interviews. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Zachary and I'm here with...
I'm William.
Do you think that violent crime would have an effect on memory testimony?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the circumstances, because, everybody else has, different kind of tolerances for, what they've seen, But, I'm sure it does have effect on, the population, varying degrees, of course.
Do you think that eyewitness testimonies are reliable?
Well, I think so, I mean, there are instances, of course, where, there might be problems, but, these people were there and they did witness, what happened, so they would probably have a better understanding than, somebody who, wasn't there at all.
Thank you. Now I'm here with...
Oh, my name is Jose Gonzalez. My degree is IT and bachelor's.
Do you think that eyewitness testimonies are reliable?
I think they are, since they help not only for the investigation itself, but it serves as an addition of information in case there's nothing found already at the scene.
Okay, do you think that violent crime would have an effect on the witness's testimony?
Most likely would, since we're psychological beings, so anything that may cause trauma may affect the actual witnesses. In cases of violence, some people may be afraid of actually come up and, talk about the case.
Okay. Would the witness's opinion of the victim or assailant change the way they view the crime?
May you repeat that? Sorry.
Would the witness's opinion of the victim or assailant change how they view the crime?
Can you repeat one more time?
Would the witness's opinion of the victim change how they view the crime? Like how they feel about the victim.
The witnesses?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so it's more of like being biased, I guess what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
It may affect, but being on the witness role, I think they have to come into consideration that they have to be more factual, because they cannot be saying they cannot add or take out stuff, because it may ruin the case for the person that's actually being judged, and it's not he's not the one that actually did the crime, for so to say. So it's better to be more factual and try to stay away of being biased, which I know is hard being a human being to try to understand both sides, but I think it's possible to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for those interviews. That's all the time we have for today, everyone. Thank you for watching Primetime News. Tune again next time for even more articles and studies. Thank you for watching Primetime, signing off.